Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's good to be here again. I hope you're doing good. Okay, so I made this beautiful dress. Okay, there are 4 dresses actually, yeah, for a wedding coming up. So I decided to show you how I made the dress. Okay, it's for the flower girls. Okay, there are 4 and they are between 7 and 8 years old. Okay, so the measurements I'll be using today are for girls between 7 and 8 years old. Okay, you know, sizes actually vary. Okay, so it's not a standard measurement, all right, but these are the measurements of one of the girls that I am actually sewing this dress for. Okay, so now here is what the pattern looks like. Okay, but then I'll be showing you the method I used in drafting this pattern. So I'll be dividing this video into 2. Okay, this first one is going to be for the pattern drafting and the second one will be for the sewing. Okay, so this is the lace material that I'll be using for the bodice. All right, okay, you see it's actually full of stones and beads. Okay, so that's actually one of the reasons why I decided to use a pattern. Okay, if it was just a plain material, okay, just like the ordinary cotton material, I may not have drafted a pattern for it. Okay, so if you're working with materials such as this, okay, I would advise you to draft a pattern. Okay, these are the other materials that I'll be using. Okay, the satin material. Okay, I have 2 meters of the satin material. The tulle, I have 4 meters. Okay, the lining, I have 2 meters, and then the hard net, I have 1 meter. Okay, so plus the lace, I'm going to use half a meter for each of the girls. Okay, so I have 2 meters in total. So also these are the measurements that I'll be using: the shoulder measurement 12 inches, the bust measurement, the chest, that's 25 inches, the waist 25 as well, shoulder to waist 12 inches, and the ham side is 13 inches. Okay, so now let's get to this drafting. So I'm going to start with the front pattern. Okay, so from my baseline down here is 12 inches. Okay, and that is the half length of the girl. Okay, shoulder to waist, that is 12 inches. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to measure the shoulder width. All right, so the shoulder is 12. Okay, 12 divided by 2, that is 6 inches. So I'll be marking 6 inches here. Okay, so after that I'm going to mark the neck width. All right, so the neck width I'm going to be using is 3 inches. All right, so from my center front I'm going to be marking 3 inches inward. Okay, which is what I'm marking here, that is 3 inches. Okay, so the next measurement I'll be using is the arm side measurement. Okay, so just like for adults, you're going to get the arm side measurement divided by 2. The arm side is 13 divided by 2, that is 6.5. all right, so I'll be marking 6.75 here. All right, I added an extra 0.25 inches. Okay, because you know, they are kids. Okay, so and they grow really fast, so I don't want the arm side to be tight on them. Okay, and because if it's tight they might not be able to wear it a few months from now. Okay, so I'm just going to draw that into a straight line. Okay, just like this. So the next thing I'll be doing is to measure, input the same measurement that I have on my shoulder. Okay, I'll be marking the same measurement on this line, okay, which is my chest line. All right, so what I have on the shoulder measurement is 6. Okay, remember the shoulder measurement was 12 divided by 2, which is 6. Okay, so I'm marking 6 inches on this chest line as well. Okay, and then I'll be connecting the shoulder measurement to the chest line. Okay, just like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the bust measurement. All right, the bust measurement is 25 inches. Okay, 25 divided by 4, that is 6.25. all right, so I'll be adding an ease allowance of 0.5 inches. Okay, so if I had 0.5 to 6.25, that is 6.75 inches. Okay, so right here on the chest line I'll be marking 6.75 inches. All right, you don't want to mark the actual measurement actually for kids. Okay, you know, they grow very fast. So now to the waist. Yeah, just like we do for adults, you know, we had dart allowance. Okay, you know we had darts for adults too. Okay, so for kids I'll also be adding darts, all right, on the pattern actually. Okay, so if the fabric permits me, I'll be putting that, and if it doesn't, I'll be taking the dart out. All right, so now the dart I'll be using is 0.5 inch, okay, because they are still kids. Okay, so the total that I'll be using is 0.5 inch. So now what I'll be doing is to divide my waist measurement by 4. Okay, my waist measurement is 6.25. okay, that is 25 divided by 4, that is 6.25. yeah, then I'll be adding ease allowance of 0.5. okay, that is 6.75. okay, and then I'll be adding my dart allowance of 0.5 again. Okay, I hope you understand me. So I've just connected the chest mark to the waist mark. Okay, so the next thing I'll be doing is to construct my darts. Okay, so I am going to measure the chest line. Okay, measuring it, I have 6 inches. Okay, then I'm going to find the midpoint, which is 3 inches. Okay, so I'm going to measure 3 inches inward from my center front. Okay, both on the waistline and on the chest line. Okay, and then I'm going to draw that into a straight line. Okay, just like this. Okay, so after drawing the line, what I'm going to do is to come down by 1.5 inches. Okay, just to give some ease around the chest area. Okay, just like we do for adults. Okay, so I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to make a mark there. Okay, so at the base of the dart, okay, you know I used 0.5 inch for the dart. Yeah, so I'm marking 0.25 inch on both sides. Okay, and then I'm connecting it to that 1.5 mark that I made earlier. All right, so now this is my dart. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to construct the armhole. All right, so first of all, I'm going to come down from the shoulder line by 0.75 inches. Okay, you know we use 1 inch for adults. Okay, but these are still kids, so I'm using 0.75. okay, and then I'm going to connect the 0.75 mark to the neck width of 3 inches. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just to put inscriptions of the measurement I used. Okay, so that you can as well see it and probably use it for reference. Okay, so now I'm going to connect the neck width to the shoulder slant. All right, so after doing that, I'm going to measure the distance between the shoulder slant and the chest line. Okay, and that is 6 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark the midpoint, which is 3 inches, and then I'm going to go in by 0.5 inch. Okay, so I'm going to connect the new shoulder slant to the chest line this way. Okay, making sure that I touch all these 3 points: the shoulder slant, the 0.5 inch mark, and then the chest line. All right, just like this. Okay, so now to the neck depth. What I'm going to be using is 2.5 inches. Okay, remember that you can use whatever neck depth you so desire. Okay, you can alter it, okay, to become whatever you want. All right, but I'll be using 2.5 inches, and then I'm going to connect the neck width to the neck depth. Okay, and after doing this, we are done with the front pattern. Okay, so I'm just writing the front here so that you know it is the front. So the next thing I'll do is to extend these lines. All right, my base line, my chest line, and then the half length line. Okay, so that I can construct the back pattern. All right, so now that I have extended the line, the first thing I'll be doing is to draw a straight line to indicate my center back. All right, so that is the line that I have just drawn. All right, so from the center back line, okay, I'm going to measure out my zipper allowance. Okay, usually I use 1 inch for my zipper allowance. Okay, so I'm going to mark 1 inch here. All right, and then I'll draw it into a straight line. Okay, so that is going to be my zipper allowance. So now that I have constructed the zipper allowance, okay, I'm going to start inputting all my measurements from the first line that I drew. Okay, so now it is more like I'm duplicating the exact same things that I have on the front panel. Okay, I'll be duplicating it on the back panel as well. Okay, so on the baseline here I am marking the neck width of 3 inches and the shoulder width of 6 inches. Okay, so on the chest line as well I'm marking the same shoulder width of 6 inches, and then I'll draw it into a straight line just like this. Okay, so the next thing I'll be doing is to put the chest measurement. All right, so I'm going to use the same chest measurement I used for the front, which is 6.75 inches. Okay, so that is what I'm marking right here. Okay, so after marking the chest measurement, the next measurement is the waist measurement. All right, so I'm just measuring to ensure that I put the same thing. Okay, so that is 7.25 inch. Okay, remember the data allowance of 0.5 is already included in that measurement. Okay, so now I'm just connecting the chest measurement to the waist measurement. Okay, so now for the dart, okay, I'll be marking 3 inches inward. All right, on the chest line and on the waist line. Okay, draw it into a straight line, and then I'm going to mark 0.25 inch on both sides of the line. Okay, and then I'm going to connect it straight up to the chest line. Okay, remember for the front we came down by 1.5 inch. Okay, we're not going to do that for the back because it is the back. Okay, so now to the shoulder slant. Okay, I'm going to use 0.75 inch for the shoulder slant as well. Okay, and then I'm going to connect the new shoulder slant to the neck width of 3 inches. Okay, just like this. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to find the midpoint of the shoulder. Okay, the distance between the shoulder slant and the chest line. Okay, that is 6 inches. The midpoint is 3 inches. All right, remember at the front we went in by 0.5 inch. Okay, usually for adults we don't go in at the back. Okay, but you know these are kids. Okay, they are not as broad, their shoulder is not as broad as adults. Okay, so there I went in by 0.25 inch. Okay, because we don't want the armhole to be, we don't want the sleeve to be right into the ham. Okay, to be right into the ham. All right, I hope you understand me. So I just went in by 0.25 inch. Okay, and then I connected the 3 dots. All right, so now to the back neckline. Okay, I actually want a V neckline. Okay, so what I did was to measure 1 inch up from the chest line. Okay, I marked it, and then I connected the neck width of 3 inches to the new neck depth. Okay, at the back. Okay, so I used the curved ruler because I actually want a curved feel at the back. Okay, so after doing that I'm just going to connect the new mark to the zipper allowance. Okay, so that I don't forget to cut out the zipper allowance. Okay, so I'm just making this mark. Okay, just to let me know how I'm going to cut the pattern. All right, so remember for the back pattern for adults as well, we always go in by 0.5 inch. Okay, at the waistline, so that we can prevent the zipper from bulging. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here. However, I'm going to be using 0.25 inch. Okay, not the usual 0.5 inch. Okay, you know kids don't have curves yet, unlike adults. Okay, so now I'm going to remeasure the zipper allowance from that new 0.25 line. I remeasured 1 inch. Okay, for the zipper allowance. Okay, and I connected it to my neck depth at the back. All right, so now with this I think I am done with the front and the back pattern. Okay, so the thing I'm trying to explain here is that I am not sure that I'll be taking into that on this fabric, okay, considering how I'm going to place my pattern. All right, the stones and the beads might be in the way, okay, so I might not be able to take in the dart, okay. So what I'm going to do is just to deduct the dart allowance that I imputed on the pattern, which is 0.5 inch from the waist measurement, okay. So I'll be taking 0.5 inch away from the waist measurement, okay. But if you're working with a plain fabric, okay, please take in the dart. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is to put seam allowances around the pattern, okay. So for the sides I'm using 1.5 inch, okay, and for the other sides, for the other places, I'm actually using 0.5 inch, okay. For example, the armhole, the neckline, the shoulder line, okay, I'm using 0.5 inch allowance, okay. And for the bottom as well, I used 0.5 inch seam allowance, okay. So after putting the seam allowance, I'm going to cut it out. So because this bodice is going to be a sleeveless bodice, okay, I'm going to be deducting some inches from the shoulder slant, okay. So I'll be deducting 0.75 inches, okay. So I'm marking 0.75 inches from the seam allowance, okay, inward. All right, and then I'm going to connect it to the armhole just this way. So I'm going to do the same for the front and for the back, okay. If I was going to attach sleeves to the bodies, okay, I would not be making this alteration. All right, so because it is a sleeveless bodice, all right, the armhole, like the shoulder, has to go a little inward, okay. So that is why I'm making this alteration, okay. So I'm just going to connect it this way for the front and the back, and then I'm going to cut it out. Please note that since I've already added seam allowances around it, I'm not going to add any more seam allowance, okay. All right, so I'm not going to add any more seam allowance. The seam allowance is already there, okay. So I'm just going to cut it out, and that will be all, okay. So the bodice is ready to be cut on the fabric.